Hi guys and welcome to the kingdom. I hope you guys have all had positive and productive weeks this week. So quickly, before we get into things, I bought two things for Bookstagram, which I absolutely love. I'm just going to grab them one sec. Okay, so here they are. They are, oh gosh, I have this the right way around. It's a tiara and a crown. I got them on eBay and I just love them. Like, this one doesn't really sit very well, but I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it suits me? I don't. I don't think that the crown really suits me. I'm a king without a crown that suits me, but never mind. But I do really love this. Look at that, isn't it so cute? But eBay is such a good place to get stuff for Bookstagram. Like, I literally got this, I think it was like £4. Yeah, like £4, but yeah. Anyway, so you'll be seeing these on my Bookstagrams quite a lot because they're just so cute, and I do read a lot of fantasy, and that's where these things apply, so yeah. Anyway, I'll actually get into what this video was about, which is writing fight scenes. Writing fight scenes is really, really difficult. It is difficult to make them engaging for one particular reason: fighting is boring. Particularly when you can't see the fighting, describing the fight is repetitive and it's boring. It's not like in the movies where you can see it and instantly know, oh, that's a massive explosion, oh, that was an amazing save, oh my gosh, that was missed by such a fraction of its distance, oh my goodness. You can't get, it's a lot more difficult to get that thrill from a fight scene into your writing because you have to write it out. Putting in that level of description into a fight scene can really slow down the action, and you lose the thrill and you lose the engagement in the scene because it is slowed down to that degree. So finding the right balance is really, really tricky. However, you can't just be like, right, it's difficult, I'm not going to write a fight scene, because that's not realistic. Most plots are driven by conflict, whether it's your thrilling crime novel or it's your teen novel. Sometimes fights spill out, sometimes fights are needed in the novel. Your novel is probably driven forwards by a form of conflict, whether it's a crime and you've got this cop drama, or it's, I don't know, a teen school bullying kind of plot conflict. Either way, there is room for a fight to happen. If there's conflict, fights generally do follow at some point. With a cop drama, it might be a shootout. With a bullying story in your teenage story, it could be fisticuffs in the playground. Either way, you can't just ignore writing fight scenes, which means that we need to learn how to write them and make them engaging. This is a skill that I had to learn quite quickly with my own books. Shameless plug. My own books are thrilling, spy, thief, adventure, action, espionage novels for teenagers, and yeah, there's a lot of fighting in it in certain sections. There are shooting incidents, there are fisticuff incidents, so it is something that every writer has to learn at some point. So here's what I learned when writing fight scenes. It isn't actually the fight itself that makes it interesting. Every fight scene is pretty much the same, with the exception of magical fight scenes, in which case sometimes that's also accompanied with a little bit of explanation that needs to be given, particularly if it's the first time that kind of fight has arisen. Magical fight scenes, I think, actually is a topic all on its own, and I think the master of writing those was probably J.K. Rowling. I think I'll do another video on magical fight scenes on their own entirely. I think today we're going to stick to your standard fisticuffs, swords, daggers, guns, that kind of fighting. But anyway, like I said before, it isn't the actual fight scene in itself that makes a fight scene engaging. It's the stakes, it's the surprises. The exchange of blows is kind of neither here nor there if there isn't the emotional engagement at the same point. What are the stakes? What are the surprises? Where's the emotional argument? What's the reversal? What's the fallout? What kind of issues is this fight going to bring out? Is it going to resolve something, or is it going to make things 10 times worse? How is it going to change the course of the story? How is it going to change your character? And how is it going to change their resolve? Right now, I want you to sit down and think of any sports game that you've ever watched. You might not be a sports person, but you would have probably at some point sat down to watch either the Olympics or the World Cup or some kind of sporting game. I want you to think about sitting down to watch that. Who or what or whatever they were doing, that doesn't really matter. What does matter, however, is the commentator. The commentator's job is to tell a story about this match to get people more emotionally engaged. Professional sport worked out a really long time ago that action can sometimes be boring. The action, particularly repetitive action with repetitive goals, gets boring. So what they did was they brought in commentators to tell you about the emotional stakes, to tell you a story, to tell you about what is on the line for these characters, or in this case, player. Their job as a commentator is to get the viewer invested in the players and in the athletes and to be rooting for them. So your job as the author is to do the same thing for your characters in a fight scene. If your confrontation or your fight scene is set within the parameters of a dramatically charged event, even something as small as a thumb war can get really, really exciting. But if there's no drama, even a huge interstellar galactic war is going to seem really dull. Now, obviously, the key to creating a dramatic fight scene, whether it's a single scene or your entire novel, is actually the structure. So let's take a little bit of a look at the kind of structure you can use to help set out these fights. First of all, before you sit down to write your fight scene, you need to work out some of the following. First off, you need to work out how it fits into your story. You also need to work out who your combatants are and what their abilities are. You need to work out where it's going to take place, and you need to work out who the reader should be rooting for and who's actually going to win. And of course, they don't have to be the same person. To help you work out what these things will influence, I suggest you check out my action scene video, which I did a couple of weeks ago, which can explain a little bit more about this. But assuming that you've got these points settled, let's get into the rest. Now, before you sit down to write your fight scene and you've got those points sorted, I want you to ask yourself, do I actually need a fight scene, or will a single sentence of action do the job nicely? For example, if in your plot you've got to knock out a guard, it's probably not worth having a couple of pages dedicated to a fight scene with the guard if that's not a dramatically charged event. Ask yourself, is the action going to have a dramatic or emotional charge to it? If there isn't that, then I would suggest using 1 or 2 lines of action because it'll have a bigger punch. Whereas if there is that dramatic emotional charge, that's when you should sit down and start thinking about your fight scene. Think about your fight scene. Will your reader care? Will it slow down your plot? Will it lose momentum? Will it waste time? As always, first and foremost, think of your reader. First and foremost, always think about your reader, because at the end of the day, they're the people that are going to be picking up your book. So do whatever you have to do to remind yourself to think about your reader. Write it on a post-it note and stick it on top of your laptop. Repeat it over and over again in the mirror or in the shower. Tattoo it to your forehead. I don't care. Whatever you have to do, remember your number one tool in your toolbox as a writer is thinking about your reader. But assuming you've decided, yes, this is dramatically charged, yes, this is needed, this is going to be engaging, and you want to go ahead with writing a fight scene, here's the structure. So there are 9 stages to a fight. The first is the meeting where your combatants meet. The second is the initiation where the combatants move into their fighting stances. And the third is the first blow, where the first blow is delivered. The fourth is the exchange, where the combatants will be fairly evenly matched at this point and they'll be exchanging a series of blows. The fifth is the serious blow. This is the blow where someone, pulls that amazing right hook out of the bag or this secret weapon or whatever, and one of the characters suffers really, really badly in the middle of the fight. The next point is the retreat, where this character retreats after suffering that serious blow and it looks like the fight is going to end in someone else's favour. And that moves neatly onto the crisis point. This is the make or break point in the fight. This is the point where your character either makes a comeback or they lose the fight entirely. Then you have the final blow, which is the blow that ends the fight. It doesn't have to be like some sort of killing blow or whatever, but it is the blow that means that one of the combatants doesn't get back up. And then you have the resolution, what is the fallout from the fight afterwards. When writing a fight scene and using the structure I just talked about, you will notice how your writing changes throughout the course of that structure. Are they winning? In which case the emotional charge is going to be quite hyper, whereas if they're losing, you're going to have worries about what's going to happen if they lose. Are they winning? Are they losing? What physical state are they in? Did they have to run a mile to get here, in which case they're already winded and their muscles are already aching? Or are they fresh out of bed, but bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go? In which case they're probably not too worried about their stamina, whereas someone else might be. Another way to add interest into your fight, rather than just going over the emotional conflict again, which of course can be really boring if you repeat it over and over and over, is to move. Maybe they were inside and now they're outside. Maybe the environment starts to play into the fight scene itself. Maybe one combatant moves up the scaffolding and knows the other combatant is afraid of heights. Suddenly this phobia, this fear, is now a factor into their fighting and can tip the scales one way or another. Maybe there's a change in who you're fighting. One person goes down so somebody else steps up to the plate. Maybe there's a sniper or a third party to shock end it. Maybe someone else has something up their sleeve, something massive or something just small enough to tip the scales. Also play with changing up the stakes. Maybe your MC didn't realise that his combatant had kidnapped his child and now the stakes are so much higher than they were before. Play with these fight scenes, try and increase the emotion, try and change something up so that it doesn't get repetitive and boring. Now with the stages I talked about earlier, obviously you can repeat certain sections, such as you can have 3 crisis points in a fight and then you go back to the beginning and you sort of start again without the meeting and intro, but you can go back to the first blow and sort of start again. And obviously if you're writing in a genre where realism is important, if a fight is completely one-sided, you know, like a 5-year-old going up against a burly assassin, then you're probably going to have always a one-sided fight, in which case then structure doesn't really matter so much, because what's a 5-year-old going to do against a giant burly assassin? So if you really want to get the hearts pounding in your reader, you need to make sure that you change up the stakes, you change up what they expect. Don't give them what they expect. If they expect to see the main character win or expect to see the main character survive, that could happen, but have something unexpected happen in the fight, because fights rarely go how you plan them out. Most of all, try and at some point in the fight remind the reader what the emotional stakes are to your main character. Win or lose, what is going to happen? Also, in terms of stylistically, I've said this a couple of times in the video, but do try and avoid repetition. I know there are only so many ways where you can describe a kick or a punch or a blow or a shot. I myself have struggled with this in the past, but do try to avoid repetition where possible. Because obviously, again, that can really bring a reader out of your story. But at the same time, don't use anything too bizarre to describe your weapons or your blows or punches or whatever, because again, that will also get a reader thinking, wait, what? So that is stylistically what I would recommend. Also, I recommend shorter, punchier sentences. If you don't need to add description in there, then I suggest that you don't. I would suggest putting your description before or after the fight takes place, because it slows down your plot quite considerably, and that is not something that I would recommend, particularly in a fight scene where you want people to be on the edge of their seat thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Another thing I would recommend is think about the purpose of the fight. If the fight is only going to demonstrate that character Y is a badass, then you don't need a 16-page fight. Again, I think with fight scenes generally shorter is better, because I think that you can get that punchier, faster action in there, as well as reminding people of the emotional stakes. Also, I would, just another quick little thing to add in with regards to fight scenes, don't suddenly have characters materialise abilities out of nowhere. Sometimes with magical fight scenes, again, separate video entirely, you can get away with this. If someone has never held a sword before or doesn't have years and years and years of training, they are not about to win the sword fight against the Grand Master, unless there's some sort of magic, cheating or trickery involved. So don't suddenly have characters expose skills that just are completely outside their remit. Of course, it can be quite fun at the beginning of the novel to suddenly expose, you know, this cute little character can suddenly kick butt. That's fine in terms of character development or introducing characters, but if you've been with characters all the way through the novel and you haven't been hinting that they can do something amazing and you just suddenly pull it out of the bag, your readers will probably be left with a little bit of whiplash. So I would definitely plan that out very, very carefully. Anyway, that's all from me this week. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I make book and writing related videos all the time, every Tuesday. I do planning videos, I do book haul videos, and I do writing videos. And I'm also wondering whether I should start doing book reviews or not. If you think that's a good idea, please let me know. If you've got any questions about any kind of writing or anything at all to do with books, just put them below, or even if you just got a comment, because I love talking about books. So please, let's start a conversation, and I hope you guys have positive and productive weeks, and I'll see you next time. Bye!